Welcome into another episode of the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. I'm your host, Richard Johnson, and I am joined by my guys, Brad Crawford and Emory Hunt. And this week, debut on the show, the great man, Adam Breneman. We are going 4 wide on a Friday. Let's get into it, locked and loaded. Pat Narduzzi, maybe not so locked and loaded into whether his Pitt Panthers are going to get the job done against Notre Dame. Guys, I don't know if I've ever heard a coach talk like this openly. Pat Narduzzi said, and I quote, he'd gladly get beat 103 or 110 to 10 versus Notre Dame this weekend. Now the line's only Notre Dame minus 12.5. It's not Notre Dame minus 100. But Brad, he's obviously talking about the college football playoff and how Pitt doesn't necessarily need to win this game. They just need to win out in their conference schedule, not a non-conference game. But what do you make of these comments from Pat Narduzzi?
Well, Pat Narduzzi needs to check the ACC standings again. Pitt does not control its own destiny, still needs help from Louisville against SMU and various other scenarios outside of winning its next 2 games after this weekend. But deep down, I know Pat Narduzzi wants to beat Notre Dame. I do think, however, he's setting up for a possible blowout loss because when you say things like this pregame, maybe you've watched a film and you notice the Irish are going to, whoop tail this weekend against your own team. But yeah, if I'm a booster right now at Pitt, Richard, I'm not too happy seeing these pregame comments that Notre Dame could hang half 100 on us and it'd be okay.
Emory, Notre Dame obviously needs to keep its college football playoff hope alive in this game. We've seen Notre Dame come along now, 7 wins in a row. What do you make of the Irish coming into this spot?
I think they're in a great spot because we talked about this after they lost that game against Miami or Texas A&M. Like they're going to have to win impressively the rest of the way. And this just jives what we talked about earlier in the year where Notre Dame is going to have to beat teams by double digits. They're going to have to make some splash plays that people start to talk about and change the narrative like, oh, they were overrated. They lost those 2 big games to Wildman. I mean, listen, Notre Dame's playing their best ball right now at this part of the season. And that's what's happening right now. So as far as Narduzzi's comments, listen, I love it. This is a funny thing that he threw out there. We actually had this philosophical conversation in college. Like, bro, would you rather get blown out or lose by like on the last second field goal? And we was like, man, I'd rather get blown out because it's funny in blowouts. If you lose a tight game, now you're really mad. But a blowout, stuff happens.
Welcome to philosophy class here on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. Guys, according to Sportsline, Notre Dame's CFP chances would rise to 84% with a win, would fall to 0% with a loss against Pitt. It's clear that Notre Dame has to win out over the course of the season. But Adam, from the player's perspective, what would you think if you heard your coach talk about this going into a Saturday? It doesn't matter who you're playing, conference game or not.
Man, can you imagine sitting in that locker room? You're just watching the news. They got TVs in the locker room, and you see your head coach say, we'll gladly get beat by 103 points. I'd be like, Coach, we were the 10 in the 103 to 10 that you just said right there. I mean, Pat Narduzzi's been known to make some questionable comments. We used to hear him all the time when I was playing at Penn State and Pat Narduzzi at Pitt and the comments about the rivalry and the scheduling. This one takes the crown. When your coach says you'll gladly lose 103 to 10, the whole locker room looks around and is like, what are we doing here, Coach? That's not, to me, that's not how you motivate your team. And I think Brad made a great point. Maybe Narduzzi saw something on film that said this game could become a blowout, but Notre Dame definitely has the confidence heading into this one because they won the psychology battle with Pat Narduzzi's comments pregame.
Guys, Notre Dame plus 26.1 points per game, point differential in the last 7 games that they have been on this win streak. They've won each of those games by 10 or more points. Pitt 7-2 against the number so far this season, and the over is 7-2 in Pitt games. That Mason Heinschel, K. Bell connection has paid dividends for Pitt. We'll see how it goes against Notre Dame Saturday afternoon. Oklahoma and Alabama. It's the big one in the SEC this week. One of the big ones, I should say, in the SEC this week. R. Mason Thomas, the all-world edge rusher for Oklahoma, is questionable. Quad injury that he suffered against Tennessee, actually returning a fumble back to the crib in that game at a Rocky Top. Thomas leads the Sooners this season with 6.5 sacks, but he was hurt on that fumble return, so may not be 100% in this game. If he goes at all, we will see. Brad, that Oklahoma defense, fearsome so far this season under Brent Venables. Will they be okay with or without R. Mason Thomas?
they need R. Mason Thomas to not only start this game, but be near 100%, in my opinion, to knock off an Alabama team that's already beaten 4 or 5 ranked teams this season. Alabama also unbeaten at home right now under Kalen DeBoer. So very big game, as you mentioned, Richard, Saturday in the SEC. I think it's a playoff elimination game of sorts for the Sooners. And you talk about the 6.5 sacks he has off the edge. When Ty Simpson's been under pressure this season, third downs have been a bit of an issue for Crimson Tide. I know he's only thrown 1 interception. Alabama does not have a strong run game right now. But we're talking about Oklahoma's most impactful defender. And we saw the kind of impact that he had at Neyland Stadium during the Sooners win. So R. Mason Thomas, he needs to play Saturday for the Sooners to have a shot.
Emory, let's talk about that Alabama run game. Has not been good enough so far this season. I do wonder when or if it's going to get Alabama beat, quite frankly, on the road to where they want to go, which is to play meaningful football in January.
Well, it won't get them beat in this ball game because I think Alabama has slowly transitioned this year into more of the passing team. So the running game is just kind of, hey, if we can do that, we can. That's great. If not, that's fine. We got Ty Simpson. We got the passing game rolling, and that's where we're going to hang our hats this season. I think it changed this season where their strengths lie. Now, if they're going to get back to really closing out ball games, they're going to need the run game, and that's when the November schedule, that's when the SEC championship game, if they're able to get there, and the postseason comes into play. So the run game will have to be important, but not in this particular ball game because I think they found their rhythm with their way, with how they're able to pass the football.
Adam, haven't talked about Oklahoma's offense. Obviously, John Mateer came on very strong earlier in the season, then the hand injury. Now he's had another week off, no surgery this week, and says it's kind of the first, Mateer has said it's kind of the first time he's been able to chill all season. What do you think about Oklahoma's offense coming into this game?
Yeah, this is a run John Mateer at all costs to win this game type of formula for Oklahoma's offense. It's got to be sell it out on the line if you're John Mateer. He's now healthy, feeling good. He's got time to rest for the last couple of weeks. And now it's about winning this game with plays on the perimeter. That's when this offense has been at its best, when John Mateer is creating with his legs and making plays down the field off broken plays. You know, to me, I really think the matchup that will decide this game is the Oklahoma pass rush against Ty Simpson, Alabama's quarterback. You know, the Sooners are one of the top teams in the country with sacks. It's been the Brent Venables formula has been chaos up front. When they get home, it's not just about the sacks, guys. It's distorting the pocket. It's affecting the quarterback on the next play and the play after that. It's forcing hurried throws. It's making the quarterback play faster than he really wants to and have to speed up those progressions. So this pass rush will be critical for Oklahoma. And if they do have R. Mason Thomas, I think it's a big advantage in the game for them.
Totals 45.5. Under is 7-2 so far in Oklahoma games this season. We'll see how R. Mason Thomas injury affects that this weekend. Hollywood Smothers for NC State. He is likely to play, according to our Matt Zenitz, against Miami. Miami fighting for their own playoff lives in this game. They come in the college football playoff rankings ranked number 15. There is an outside chance for them to get in as an at-large. Frankly, it's probably easier for them to get in as an at-large than it is to win the ACC, the way the ACC has stacked up so far this season. Brad, I'll go to you first with NC State. It's been tough for them this season. They did beat Georgia Tech, though, a couple weeks ago without Smothers. So what do you think about Smothers' injury and how it'll affect NC State in this game?
I think it's huge for the Wolfpack offense if he's able to come back near 100%. You did mention NC State eclipsed 600 total yards against Georgia Tech 2 weeks ago. That's why the Yellow Jackets right now are not the ACC's projected champion or playoff team yet. We see NC State right there, what they've done against ranked teams recently under Dave Doran. I think the key here is C.J. Bailey, Miami native, going back home against the Hurricanes defense. Obviously, we know Miami on good Saturdays, they're very, very elite up front and in the secondary. C.J. Bailey's a guy, Richard, that I think on third down, if he can make some plays, maybe Smothers has a 70-yard breakaway run. We've seen him have those kind of plays this season. NC State cannot upset Miami, but can put up Miami on upset alert.
Emory, Miami's 5-11 in November and December games against, under head coach Mario Cristobal. It just has not been good enough when it matters for Miami under Cristobal. Do you think they can get it done in this game, or do you think they may get bit by the upset bug?
They can get bit by the upset bug because C.J. Bailey and his band of Wolfpack talents around him, they've also beaten Virginia. So I know that has to frustrate NC State fans. Like, man, we beat all the best teams in the conference, but we lose to everyone else. And so when you look at Miami, what has normally given them issues on the crystal ball, when teams are not afraid to punch Miami in the mouth, they're not afraid about the logo on the helmet, that's when Miami gets into a problem. And I feel like this NC State team is going to come into this ball game not afraid of who's on the other side. And if you can get Hollywood Smothers match up one of those linebackers in the passing game, that'll be a matchup where they can significantly exploit this defense. So I like NC State to come in with a puncher's chance. And what a great way for Miami to get a look at their QB1 for 2026 in C.J. Bailey.
We'll see what happens with the transfer portal when that comes around. Adam, Miami needs this game, obviously, to stay alive in the college football playoff race. Do you think they could sneak into the top 12?
Yeah, they need a couple of things to happen to get that at-large spot on the top 12. I mean, a few losses got to happen, but first, you got to beat NC State in this game. And Carson Beck's got to play more efficient football and take care of the ball through this final stretch of the season. For Carson Beck, I really think it's about winning with efficiency and not playing hero ball all the time. 2 turnovers in the loss against SMU, 4 turnovers in the loss against Louisville. Miami has a talent gap in this game. So you got to play clean football and let the talent gap take care of the rest against a team like NC State. Carson Beck, when he's clean, man, he's really efficient. You see that arm talent. You see the accuracy. You see what gets everyone excited. But when he makes those game-flipping turnovers, it has critically hurt Miami's season this year.
When we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, we're going to talk Game of the Week. Georgia and Texas meet again. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. All right, guys, Texas and Georgia meet again this week. It seems like the Dogs and the Longhorns are always playing each other, played each other twice last year, may get them twice this year. You never know what's going to happen in the postseason. Texas really come along strong in the last few weeks. Obviously clunky to start the season for them against Ohio State, and then they had some non-cons and trying to get Arch going. The last couple weeks look like they have a little something, and Georgia just continues to find ways to win week in and week out. Adam, I'll go to you first. As far as the matchup overall, how do you see these two teams matching up against each other?
Yeah, it's a fascinating matchup. I like Texas's defense and how they match up against what Georgia wants to do. Texas has been phenomenal against the run this year, top 10 in rushing success rate on defense. And Georgia's offense has been built on efficiency, not really explosive plays down the field. It's been those long mistake-free drives they strung together. So I think Texas and how they want to play on defense will make for a good matchup for them. And then Texas's explosive passing game, I think, will attack Georgia's one real weakness that we've seen, which is some of those explosive plays that Georgia's given up on defense the last couple of weeks. If Arch Manning can make throws down the field, guys like Ryan Wingo can get open. He's averaging, over 10 yards a catch right now this season on plays down the field. I think that's going to be a critical matchup, the Texas explosive passing game down the field against this Georgia secondary.
Yeah, to me, Texas is an offense with Sark that it's kind of like layups and threes, right? A whole lot of screen passes. Few coaches in the sport, quite frankly, design a screen game like Steve Sarkisian does, and then those deep passes, like you say, Adam. So it's a situation of, can Arch frankly connect on intermediate routes over the middle of the field and just try to make it a situation where Georgia just can't sit on short stuff and then defend deep? Can you be varied in this passing game for Arch? Back-to-back 300-yard passing games with 3+ touchdowns. Arch has in his back pocket. He's really coming along. Georgia has spent the most time trailing during a 9-0 or 8-1 start by any FBS team since 2005 UCLA, Emory. Georgia has been, I don't know if playing with their food or getting away with it is the best way to say it. Because it's Georgia, we probably just say that they find ways to win in the end, right?
Well, and here's the thing. It shows you over time this season that Georgia thrives in chaotic situations. So if you're Texas, you're going to have to zig as opposed to zagging, which you do offensively. You're going to have to play a slow pace, deliberate game. Georgia wants to make it chaotic. Georgia wants to give up the big play. Therefore, now you got to defend their up-tempo offense, and now you're going back and forth, and that's where Gunnar Stockton thrives. That's where this Georgia offense thrives. That's where their defense can find those timely stops. So if you're Texas, you kind of want to slow this game down and shrink this ball game and force Georgia to play discipline on offense and on defense. But you like how Georgia thrives in these chaotic situations. We saw that last year when Carson Beck got hurt and Gunnar Stockton came in and got them the game-winning points that they needed to move on. And so I think this is an area where Texas, yes, if Arch Manning can make some plays at all levels of the field, throwing the football, and maybe they can run the ball a little bit better just to get the attempts up, not necessarily the yards per carry or the output, but more so the attempts, and force Georgia to play discipline. Now we got ourselves a ball game. But this is going to be fascinating nonetheless because narrative drives things. And if Texas wins this ball game, guess who's going to be in the Heisman Trophy conversation? And guess who's going to be in the playoffs and probably with a bye? And that's going to be Texas.
Brad, how many times do we take this Georgia program in the last few years and say the better quarterback, the more talented quarterback at least, is on the other side, and yet they always find a way? Gunnar Stockton, only SEC quarterback with 9+ touchdowns over his team's past 3 games. He's come along strong, working into the system and finding ways to be productive in the Georgia pass game. What have you seen from Stockton lately, and how do you think it affects them in this game where they're going to go up against probably the best pass rusher tandem since at least the Alabama game?
Yeah, Gunnar Stockton has played well above expectations, in my opinion, at least from a national standpoint this season. I think a lot of us thought that going from Carson Beck to Gunnar Stockton, we saw what Stockton did against Notre Dame in the playoff. It was kind of lackluster, but he has carried this team offensively at times. We've seen, Richard, in Georgia's 3 closest SEC games this season, the opposing quarterback really match pass for pass Gunnar Stockton and execute well on third down. We saw Joey Aguilar score 44 points beating Georgia at Neyland Stadium for Tennessee. We saw Ty Simpson convert early on third down, make some big plays for Alabama in that win over Georgia. And then Trinidad Chambliss. When you have 300+ yards passing and 35 points at Sanford Stadium, you're supposed to win that game. But Ole Miss defense did not hold up its end of the bargain. So I think if Arch Manning can go in there Saturday night and really play well, especially in those money down situations, it's going to put a lot of pressure on this Georgia offense, namely Gunnar Stockton, to play as well as he have in those aforementioned SEC matchups so far.
Yeah, I think for me, I wonder with Georgia, do they have the pass catchers, right? They showed against Mississippi State, which was certainly a bad matchup that they've got. I mean, Elias Williams, the freshman tight end, had an incredible catch down there in the red zone against Mississippi State. He could be one of their next tight ends to kind of come up in that lineage after Lawson Lucky got hurt in that Mississippi State game. So we'll see how Georgia's able to generate offense in this game. All right, fellas, let's pick it. I'm going to start us off. I'm going to take Texas +6.5 as far as my pick for our big game of the week. I think coming off the bye week, I think Arch and Sarkisian are going to have a plan in this game. I think Arch is going to be able to execute it. Again, I think Arch is certainly playing his best football now as opposed to in September when he had all the attention on him. I think for one of the first times, Arch gets to a little bit actually fly under the radar. We're not expecting a ton from him or Texas in this game, quite frankly. I think that Georgia's relative lack of pass rush also factors in. I think Arch is going to be a little more comfortable than you might expect, and I think the Longhorns cover +6.5 in a tough road environment. Adam, I'll go to you first, and then Emory. Adam, how do you see this game playing out? What's your pick?
Yeah, I see this game being a fourth quarter fist fight, and I think 6.5 points is too many to give Texas. I like Texas +6.5. Texas is a lead against the run on defense, gonna force Gunnar Stockton into uncomfortable situations where he's gonna be in 3rd and long and have to win games with his arm, which is not where Georgia wants to be on offense. And then for Texas on offense, if Arch Manning hits a couple deep shots down the field, this thing is a 4-quarter blow. It's going to be a game that comes down to a final field goal, final couple points, and I just think the 6.5 points, nearly a touchdown, is too many. Georgia wins a lot, guys. We all know it, but they've lived in that danger zone all season long. Nearly a touchdown is too many for me.
I don't mind the touchdown. I'm going to lay it with Georgia. I like how they are able to play in these type of situations. And Arch Manning, I still need to see him play big in a big moment against a high leverage team in a higher leverage situation. This game is going to be all about situational football. And until I see that consistently from Arch Manning against an opponent like Georgia, it's hard for me to trust. So I will trust Georgia in this chaotic game that'll come down to the wire, but I do think they have enough to cover in the end.
It feels like to me, fellas, that Georgia's super trendy pick this week. I don't think I've seen one national analyst pick Texas on the money line. I'm not going to go that bold, but I am taking the Longhorns plus 6.5 points. Steve Sarkisian, look, his record in big games at Texas is not great. He's 2-8 against top 6 teams, 1-5 in his last 6, including 2 losses to Kirby Smart. I don't think Texas beats Georgia, but like Adam and Richard, I'm telling those Longhorns plus 6.5. I think it'll be a competitive fight for 4 quarters Saturday night.
Key for Texas is, look, got to figure it out in the red zone. That's been the bugaboo for Sark over the last couple of years with the Longhorns. All right, when we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, we're going to hit you with the Blitz, whip around the best picks in college football on your Saturday. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. We're carrying the ball all the way across the goal line here, despite the fact that it's time to get hit with the Blitz. All right, I'll start us off. Navy plus 10 against USF. All these high-level spots for USF seem to have something in common. They just had weird game scripts. Weird stuff happens. I mean, take last week against UTSA, 14 points on 2 defensive touchdowns before USF's offense even hits the field. I think Navy is able to control the tempo of this game. I think they're able to keep the possessions limited because of their offense. Whether Blake Horvath plays or not, certainly of chief concern for the Navy quarterback. But at the end of the day, I think Navy does enough here to cover the 10 points.
Yeah, I'm going to stay in the American. One of the more underrated big games of Week 12, not involving ranked teams, is Memphis at ECU. Tigers were the selection committee's favorite team a couple weeks ago before, that loss to Tulane after that USF win. And I'm curious to see if the Tigers can bounce back under Ryan Silverfield on the road. ECU this season has 1 win over a team with a winning record in conference play. I don't know who wins this game, but I like Memphis plus 3 points in Greenville.
And I'm
going to go Boston. Go ahead, Emory.
No, I'm sorry. You can go ahead, Adam.
I'm going to go to the ACC. How about Boston College against Georgia Tech? Boston College plus 16.5 in this game. And BC is 7-0 against the spread against ranked teams since 2023, 2-0 against the spread against ranked teams this season. They covered against Notre Dame, covered against Louisville. Georgia Tech's defense just gave up almost 600 yards to NC State. I think Boston College at home in their final home game, nothing to lose, covers the spread against Georgia Tech, 16.5, too many points.
I'm still on that low country moonshine. I like Clemson in this game, plus 2.5 against Louisville. I still trust their point of attack play. I think they'll get it done and remind us that they still are one of the big dogs in the ACC.
Oklahoma plus 6 versus Alabama. Honestly, I think with or without R. Mason Thomas, the Sooners are able to keep this one very, very close. I just don't like the fact that Alabama is relatively one-dimensional. A Brent Venables defense is one of the worst defenses in the country to be one-dimensional against. If Venables is able to let that defense pin the ears back and bring more rushers than just R. Mason Thomas and that front 4, it could be a long day for Ty Simpson. Simpson's really accurate, makes great decisions, but don't know if he's really been sped up as far as his internal clock is concerned, as Oklahoma will do in this game. Sooners cover plus 6.
Give me Appalachian State plus 20.5 points at JMU. This might be a trouble spot for the Dukes, considering they're still in that playoff race for the G5. I think there's 4 teams, along with JMU, sort of right there in the thick of things, obviously with USF leading. Appalachian State, by the way, under first-year coach Dowell Loggins, has lost 3 consecutive games in the Sun Belt by a single possession. So App State's not winning these games, but they are playing them tight in the fourth quarter. I think they give JMU a scare this weekend.
I would lay the 12.5 points with Notre Dame. And the reason why, if you go back and check Coach Narduzzi's YouTube history, I'm pretty sure you have like 6 pages of Jeremiah Love running highlights. And that's why he's like, yeah, we're going to lose this game by 100 points. So lay the 12.5 points with the Fighting Irish.
Guys, it's been a tough season for my Penn State Nittany Lions, but you got to finally get a win here. I'm taking Penn State -7 against Michigan State. Penn State's defense still a lead up front. They should dominate the line of scrimmage. It's a low-scoring game. If Michigan State's offense can't consistently hit a couple of chunk plays, Penn State's going to win by a lot more than just 7 points.
UNC +6 against Wake Forest. As quiet as it's kept, Bill Belichick's got the boys playing just a little bit. All the distractions, all the noise seems to have tamped down, and UNC has become competent, which, quite frankly, given how they started the season, is a step in the right direction. Almost beat Virginia a few weeks ago, for instance, and have played good the last couple of weeks, finally hitting their stride. I think they're able to handle Wake Forest in this game and cover the 6 points.
Yeah, I think Clemson's win over Florida State last week was fool's gold under Dabo Swinney. I like Louisville to cover -2.5 points in a pretty big ACC game for the Cardinals, who are still in that ACC title game hunt. Jeff Brom's team will look better this week. I think they got caught looking ahead a little bit against Cal. And like I said, Clemson is still in a disaster area this season under Dabo Swinney with his future in doubt. So give me Louisville -2.5 points at home.
And the only one team will be scoring scenario, I'll look at Texas A&M versus South Carolina going under 49.5 points. I love the defense of South Carolina. I can't trust their offense, but I can trust the Aggies on both sides of the ball to have this go under 49.5 points.
Yeah, I like it. I'm going Oklahoma to cover against Alabama. This matchup comes down to Oklahoma's pass rush against Alabama's offensive line. And that's a real edge for Oklahoma in this game. And especially if they're fully healthy up front on defense. Brent Venables is one of the best in the country at muddying up great offenses, making a quarterback confused. I think Ty Simpson's confused a ton in this game, and Oklahoma hangs on for 4 quarters against Alabama.
How about Utah -8.5 against Baylor? Guys, vibes could not be worse than they are emanating right now out of Waco, given what's going on off the field with the administration at Baylor as well. I think Utah is able to come in this game and handle business. Baylor's defense has not been anything to write home about so far. For Dave Aranda, it's pretty disappointing for the Bears, and I think Utah is able to use their physical advantage in this game to win this game by two scores.
Let's go back to College Station. Emory liked the under of South Carolina A&M. I like the Gamecocks +18.5 points. Probably going to be around 17 at kickoff. It's getting bet down a little bit now. New play caller this week for South Carolina. Shane Beamer coming off an open date. Has a pretty good record with the Gamecocks in that scenario. The fact that this one's a sleepy noon kickoff, Texas A&M's unbeaten number 3, looking ahead to Texas here in a couple of weeks, I think it all adds up to a closer than expected game in South Carolina covering.
We'll see how fast Van Buren gets in the game for LSU as they take on Arkansas. Now, I still feel high on Taylor Green as the best QB prospect in the SEC, but man, they can't stop anybody, no matter who's the head coach. So I like LSU. And some of what they showed against Alabama last week will show up in this ball game on the good stuff. So I like them -5.5 here against the defenseless Arkansas Razorbacks.
Guys, the easiest pick of the weekend, Pat Narduzzi already gave us what's going to happen. Notre Dame is going to easily cover 12.5 points at Pitt. Narduzzi told us they're going to lose by 103. Notre Dame has won 7 straight by double digits right now. They're by far the better defense in this game. Pitt has struggled at times to sustain drives against quality opponents. Jeremiah Love is on an absolute heater. Notre Dame is built to win this game by a lot, way more than 12.5 points.
Give me Delaware -9.5 against Sam Houston. Sam Houston is one of the worst teams in the country. Delaware has shown that they are ready to contend in Conference USA in their first year up. I think because of that, Delaware is able to cover -9.5, win this game by 13, maybe even 14 points in the end.
Yeah, I don't think Navy's going to upset USF, but I am taking USF's team total this week under 37.5 points. I think Navy does a good job of limiting possessions. I don't think you're going to see the Bulls score on defense multiple times or get any touchdowns out of special teams. And in that scenario, I think possessions are kept to a minimum. So USF gets out of Navy with a win, but scores less than 37.5 points.
One of the more under-discussed storylines of this college football season is the job that Jason Eck has done out there in New Mexico. You saw what he did at Idaho, turned them to a power-beating FBS teams while he was there, nearly upset Oregon last year, and he's got the New Mexico Lobos in a bowl game already, and he's going to do a great job in this ball game against Colorado State, laid the 14.5 points. I hope he's able to stay at New Mexico. I like seeing good coaches thrive where they are, but we know some team will come try to pluck him away.
I'm going to go to a big game in the Big Ten, the USC at home against Iowa. I'm going USC -6.5. USC scoring nearly 50 points a game when they're at home in the Coliseum. Iowa just simply cannot match the firepower USC has on offense. Jaden Mayava is playing really well, 13 touchdowns at home this year. This explosive offense, I think, is going to be a nightmare for Iowa, and they're averaging under 10 points a game their last few against ranked opponents. If USC gets into even a modest offensive rhythm in this game, Iowa doesn't have the scoring capacity to keep this one close.
I'm taking UNLV -6 gets Utah State in this game. I think UNLV hitting a stride just a little rocky in the middle of the season, now finding themselves just a touch. I think they're able to cover -6 in this spot.
Yeah, matchup of winless Big Ten teams. I'm going to tail one of Adam's picks here. I'm going Penn State -7 at Michigan State. Penn State, by the way, if they win this weekend, still have a shot to win 2 more games and get to bowl eligibility, which is stunning considering they're 0-6 right now in the Big Ten. I like Penn State to lay a crooked number on the Spartans and cover 7 points.
I'm laying a 5.5 with Alabama over Oklahoma. R. Mason Thomas not being 100%. It's almost like having no R. Mason Thomas at all, because that just helps out Alabama's offensive line. And this game was circled for them because of how Oklahoma beat the brakes off them last season. So revenge is served sweet, and you're going to get it done down there with the Crimson Tide.
I'm going North Texas, -17.5 against UAB. UAB's fired their head coach, Trent Dilfer, this year, been struggling all season long. Meanwhile, North Texas quarterback Drew Mestemaker has been on an absolute heater, lighting up defenses over 300 yards a game. He's having a career year on offense right now. North Texas is coming off a bye week. UAB can't score points. This sets up for a comfortable multi-score, multi-touchdown win for North Texas.
When we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, we're going to hit you with some underdog plays on a Friday. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. All right, guys, let's talk underdogs. Iowa +206 against USC. Look, you may think it's all fun and games. Iowa gets to fly out, fun in the sun. The Coliseum's going to be beautiful in Los Angeles. No, the weather report is awful. It's going to look, quite frankly, just like it did last week when Iowa hosted Oregon in Kinnick. That's Iowa weather to me, baby. USC is not ready to get dragged into deep water like the Hawkeyes are built to do. I think Iowa bloodies this game up, bludgeons them physically, and wins outright over USC +206. Emory, what you got?
So Tony lied to us. That's crazy. I would say NC State will beat Miami. Down went UVA, down with Georgia Tech, and down goes the Hurricanes to CJ Bailey and the Wolfpack.
Adam?
Yeah, I'm going to go Navy beats South Florida. Got Navy +299 on the money line in this one. Blake Horvath is the ultimate equalizer at quarterback. He's got 6 straight games with 100-plus yards. He's a dynamic player. And Navy's also throwing the ball through the air. When everyone talks about their triple option, they hit some big plays. Eli Heidenreich, their wide receiver slot back, can make plays down the field. Navy, when they're at home, when they run that tempo triple option offense, can control clock completely. It's a high-stakes game, but I think Navy wins.
I'm going to go way off everybody's main card here. I'm going Tennessee Tech +1,200 at Kentucky. You've got to be smart about your bankroll, but it's okay to sprinkle a little bit on Tennessee Tech. Tennessee Tech, by the way, 10-0 this season, and this is the Golden Eagles Super Bowl in the Bluegrass. The line is somewhere around 21.5, 22 points. I think I saw it last glance. This is obviously inflated a bit because of what Kentucky did to a wretched Florida team last week. Kentucky's not 31 points better than anybody in the SEC, despite showing it on the field, okay? So Tennessee Tech, they get 3 touchdowns in this one, but I'm going money line, and Tennessee Tech will be 11-0 after this weekend.
A mighty money line sprinkle from Brad Crawford. Yeah, Kentucky has been looking better the last couple of weeks. Cutter Boley finally connecting on a little bit of the deep passes and the offensive line figuring it out. But that Tennessee Tech team absolutely coming in upset-minded. So we'll see how that one plays out. When we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, we're going to give you a model play on the Friday and then get you out of here on the Friday parlays. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. You've heard enough from us. What do the computers say? Well, the model play of the week, Texas State plus 3.5 versus Southern Miss. 73% of our sports line simulations say that is the play. The computers 6-5 through week 11, finally getting on the right side. Emory, do you agree with the computer here, Texas State versus Southern Miss?
As the resident James Evans of the show, yes, them computers doing right this time, but next week we'll see.
Well, it's a week-to-week thing as far as the computers are concerned. Aren't we all week-to-week? All right, fellas, parlay Friday to get us out of here. I will start us off. Iowa, money line versus USC. I just told you, Hawkeyes are going to take the Trojans into deep water, and USC's not going to be able to swim. I think Iowa in yucky, nasty weather gets the job done and wins the game outright. ECU -3 against Memphis. Looking a little sideways at Memphis so far. I know Brendan Lewis is a little bit banged up. ECU runs at a Mach 5 tempo. They run plays about as fast as you can on offense. It's incredible to watch when they really get in their groove and they get rolling. Love the tempo that the Pirates play with. Ole Miss -12.5 against Florida. This is the Lane Kiffin showcase. He's going to want to show a little something to the high-level folks at the University of Florida. Say, I still got it. I'm your man. I think Florida also might be folding in the tents a little bit. Might be looking at the draft stock, looking at the portal, might be concerned with what is to come in the future. You would think that they may want to show out for their potential future head coach, but who knows? A little worried about the Gators in this spot. Ole Miss -12.5. Boise State +1.5 against San Diego State. I think you saw last week that San Diego State been a good story, not really ready to hang. Hawaii got over on them early. And I think Boise's going to come out and say physically, hey, we still are the class of the Mountain West, even though it's been a down year for us. That play plus 2,064. I don't usually give you these long odds parlays, but look, let's let it all hang out here. Friday parlay, those are my picks.
Yeah, my 5-team parlay this week is all money line. It's about a third of what Richard has there on the board. It's at plus 760. I'll start things off with USF at Navy. I don't think the Bulls are in danger of losing this game. Bulls are my pick right now at CBS Sports to be the G5 pick in the playoff. They'll get that 12 seed eventually down the stretch. Louisville versus Clemson. I like Louisville to beat the Tigers. I still think Clemson can get the bowl season by a win next week and then beating South Carolina on the road in rivalry weekend. But Louisville does stay in the ACC championship hunt and covers 2.5 and wins on the money line. Notre Dame at Pitt, it's another game. Adam has mentioned it throughout the show, how he feels that Notre Dame's going to blow out the Panthers. I feel the same way. I mean, Pat Narduzzi has already told us the writing's on the wall in this game unless something crazy happens in Pittsburgh. Notre Dame there. Memphis at ECU. I know Richard's on the other side, likes ECU -3. I like Memphis on the money line. Small upset there in Greenville. And then last is Wake Forest beating Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels. Tar Heels can still get to bowl eligibility. They are playing better, as Richard has mentioned. But Wake Forest right now, big win last week at Virginia. I think they get another one over the Tar Heels. So those 5 teams on the money line, plus 760 for me.
We got to show our group of 6 and FCS program some love here. So I'm going to go down a little bit of a level from you two on my parlay. This one's going to be plus 2,039 odds. First, I'm going Penn against Harvard. Big rivalry in the Ivy League. Penn plus 21.5. That's too many points in a rivalry. With 2 physical defenses, 3+ touchdowns is too many. So Penn plus 21.5. Then we're going to Missouri State -4.5 against UTEP. Ryan Beard has his Missouri State program rolling right now. UTEP cannot match their speed or their scoring punch. UTEP has just not been good this year. I think that 4.5 points is too low for Missouri State. Then I got Memphis +3 against East Carolina. Ryan Silverfield's teams have responded well after tough losses. Memphis has an explosive offense still after that loss against Tulane. I like Memphis to win that game handily against ECU. Then I'm going to Jamie Chadwell's Liberty team, -2.5 against FIU. Chadwell's so good in these spots against teams like FIU in Conference USA, scheming them up with that spread option offense. His offense will overwhelm a team that struggles on defense, giving up over 30 points a game like FIU is. In my last play, someone else mentioned on this show, Delaware -9.5 against Sam Houston. Sam Houston's just one of the worst teams in the college football this season. They will not be able to score points. I think Delaware wins this game by multiple touchdowns.
As always, we do a FCS parlay to end the show. And firstly, at 1 p.m. Eastern time, be sure to check out Delaware State versus Howard because I have the color on that broadcast. But as you see here, FCS only, Drake, Monmouth, and New Hampshire are all on the road, and I like those guys to cover and win outright. Drake takes on Dayton. Monmouth takes on North Carolina A&T, who is getting ready for track and field season. And New Hampshire just beat Monmouth last weekend. They will beat Bryant as well, covering that 13.5-point spread. Western Carolina versus East Tennessee State. Western Carolina's quarterback Taron Dickens threw 6 touchdown passes last week, has 28 on the season, and 2 interceptions, and they lost last week by 3. And Mercer, -13.5. I like them versus Chattanooga, and Montana State to close out the night, -12.5 against UC Davis at +3,255. Guys, listen, it's an FCS winning weekend. And again, Delaware State, 7-3, Deshaun Jackson, best running game in the country, #1 rushing offense in FCS. I love that game versus Howard. Can't pick a winner because obviously I'm calling it. So check that out, 1 p.m. Eastern time.
It's always an FCS parlay when Emory Hunt is on the show. I tell you that right now. All right, guys, look, we've still got college football playoff odds that can swing very wildly, I should say, given what can happen this week. Brad, as far as the playoff race shakes out coming into this week, where do you see it swinging the wildest based on some games this weekend?
Yeah, I think it's a playoff elimination game for Oklahoma at Bryant-Denny Stadium against Alabama. I don't see a 9-win, 9-3 Oklahoma team getting into the playoff. 10 is the magic number. Oklahoma needs to win this game against Alabama. And then staying in the SEC, Texas, Georgia. I think Texas gets in the playoff at 9-3 because of the schedule, as long as it splits this weekend's game against Georgia and then the rivalry weekend showdown against Texas A&M. A&M likely going to come into that game 11-0, #3 in the country. So if Texas goes 9-3, Oklahoma goes 10-2, then you've got 5 or 6 SEC teams really vowing and trying to get inside that playoff bracket.
Emory, there is a doomsday scenario where if Duke wins the ACC, if everything breaks right, Tulane or USF win out to win the American, one of those two teams, and then James Madison wins out to win the Sun Belt, you'd have a situation where Duke and James Madison would be sitting there, Duke a 4-loss conference champion, James Madison a 12-1 conference champion of the Sun Belt, and they'd be next to each other. I think I know which way you're going to go here, but tell the people, in that binary, are you taking James Madison to make the playoff?
Yeah, because they got future Penn State head football coach Bob Chesney. Because you think about James Madison, they're one of the best teams in the FBS with all those transfers into how he coaches those guys. Like, they are a legit wagon right now. If they're able to finish the season 12-1, man, put them in the playoffs.
Adam, quickly, you down with James Madison head coach Bob Chesney? Penn State head coach Bob Chesney?
I was going to say, public service announcement, please give Bob Chesney a chance at this Penn State job. Pennsylvania guy. He's got the DNA of what it means to be a Penn Stater. I've been all about it. I love Bob Chesney. The job he did at Holy Cross and got them to be a perennial winner at the FCS level. The guy wins football games. He can recruit. He's got great hair. He looks the part. He's like he's everything you want in a head coach. Pat Kraft, hire Bob Chesney. Come on.
I dig it. Great coach, great hair. Great coach here. Great coaching here and great hair here on the CBS Sports College Football Picks Show. Thanks for joining us on another episode. For Adam Breneman, Emory Hunt, and Brad Crawford, I am your host, Richard Johnson, and this has been another week of the CBS Sports College Football Picks Show.